Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Each episode, you'll dive into conversations with top entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business leaders, unlocking the secrets to building profitable relationships that drive growth and success. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, presented by LeDuc Entertainment. Today, we are joined by James Amaro of the Amaro Law Firm. James, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Adrian. Really appreciate it.
Can you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and a little about your firm?
Sure. I'm James Amaro from Houston, Texas, born and raised, 6 generations, family from this area. And I own the Amaro Law Firm that does personal injury and wrongful death cases across Texas. We do trucking cases across the country. Our team has grown to about 90. The firm is 20 years old.
Wow.
I started it it's about to be 20 years old on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, 2025. So I started the firm Cinco de Mayo in 2005, 5505.
And can you tell us a little bit about, the people you help? I mean, you mentioned wrongful death cases, you mentioned personal injury, you mentioned trucking cases. What are some of the pain points that those people are experiencing that you're helping them solve? Like, can you kind of dive into that a little bit?
Sure. We've actually been working on our mission statement to update it in our core values for the law firm. So it's a little bit fresh in my head right now, but to sum it up is, we get life-changing results for life-changing cases or life-changing incidents or situations that people find themselves in. And the best way I could describe it is like can happen to anybody cases, anything from a tragic, pedestrian auto accident in a big box retailer parking lot to somebody shopping and materials fall on top of them, in Home Depot or Lowe's, those type of places, big box stores, to just driving down the freeway and an 18-wheeler pulls out in front of you, to being rear-ended at a red light by an 18-wheeler. We represent a lot of truck drivers across the country that get involved in other accidents with other truck drivers, whether they're stalled on the road or they hit a vehicle that's stalled on the road. I mean, there's all, or falling off a trailer that, that wasn't tarped appropriately, or you got shifting loads in trucking. I mean, you name it, people falling through skylights, off roofs, at work because there's no OSHA compliance or enforcement. We do all of that stuff, to your run-of-the-mill slip and fall and car wreck cases, and those type of things. I mean, any given day we have over 1,000 active cases at the law firm.
Oh, wow.
That we're handling, and every day I'm looking at new cases that are coming into the firm from referral partners of the law firms that send us cases from across the country, and also here locally in Houston, if it's outside the practice area, if they're doing criminal law or immigration law or different practice areas, they will refer cases to us, and because they know that we'll handle it right, we'll treat people right, and work our tails off to get them good results.
Now, I'm sure that this is a loaded question that has, no simple short answer, but I mean, you mentioned that over 1,000 active cases. What is your strategy to kind of manage all of those ongoing cases? How does your firm handle such an insane workload like that?
Well, I mean, it seems like this all happened overnight. There's 90 some people that work at the firm
right
now, and it seems like yesterday I was working on my cases out of my extra bedroom in my house. I can remember putting me and my dad, because I didn't have any money, back then, putting a wood floor in my office at my townhouse that I had because it was so much trouble to move my chair on the carpet.
Right.
I had to get up and down so many times a day to grab the $30 Vonage phone I had, voice over internet protocol phones when those first came out. And I had to go to the fax machine that was across the room because that's where the plug was, right? And then I had my desk in the corner. So we actually put the wood floor in that bedroom so that I could just push off my desk and roll over to the fax machine or to the phone when I needed to, and then come back to my workstation. So back then I've always been about like documenting a process of like how I do things from the very beginning. I mean, we still have SOPs that I drafted 20 years ago that are still in force.
Really?
And I just, stand in for those listeners out there, because I've hired a lot of people from other firms and they don't know what an SOP is. I was like, y'all, I don't have SOPs. I mean, I wasn't in the military. I know what an SOP is. I watch TV,
I was going to say, I didn't before I started working for Armando.
Right. That was shocking to me. I was like, do y'all just watch movies and TV shows and they say SOP and it just goes right over your head? So, standard operating procedures, like exactly, written instructions, very clear instructions on how to do everything. I had read a book too, man, how long ago was that? A little over 10 years ago. And it was called The Power of Systems. And it was like the first law practice book written on SOPs and implementing SOPs and, treating your law firm or law practice as a business versus a law practice. A lot of lawyers, including myself, had trouble, and we're going to, you have this dedication and intrinsic motivation to treat people like doctors treat their patients and lawyers treat their clients, of this, bonded relationship that you don't want to think of your client as a business. Right. And so once you get over that hurdle and you realize that you can own a business that treats people the way they should be treated, and gets clients the results that they should be getting from hiring or retaining your service, and you set proper expectations that you can and you should run your law practice or law firm as a business. And since then there's been incremental changes and evolutions of how I look at it. But I mean, it went from a law firm practice, to a business, to an organization, and now into a corporate type of atmosphere, and that's just been a natural evolution, I would think, as I learned and had to step up, at some points in how the firm has grown from that initial, bedroom to where we're at now.
Right.
Some parts of the business grew faster than my skills grew, or my talents or my abilities. And so you have to hire out and fill those gaps of where your shortcomings are, or, there's things, I mean, on a daily basis that I do that I don't like doing, that just have to get done.
Right.
And sometimes you just can't really hire somebody to do the things, right, that need to get done and you don't want to do because it might be a one-off or whatever. It seems like that's every day. But, I don't know if that answers your question, but, I guess it's like, how do we handle it is SOPs, baseline SOPs,
Right.
KPIs, accountability, right? You got to have a culture of accountability in any business. And so our business of helping people, is KPIs are critically important. Like, what, as our COO always says, is what gets measured gets done. And, there's other phrases out there is like, what you expect is what you inspect, and, you get what you tolerate, those kind of things, in managing a team of this size. Right. And, now we're at this inflection point where, we really need leaders of leaders and managers of managers. And that we got a SOP and KPI, leaders and managers of departments, so that they could train down and take ownership, so that we're not going crazy, at the executive level.
So you mentioned with the trucking side of it that you handle that. You said it was nationwide. Is that correct?
Yes. So.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering what some of the challenges are in operating across state lines.
Well, we always associate with local counsel wherever we have a case. Like if we have to file in another state, or if there's like some choice of law issues of what law from what jurisdiction will apply, even if we do file it here in Texas. So, I have I've been involved in the trucking cases for 20 some years, even when I was a defense attorney. And I have relationships with a bunch of lawyers, and it's very easy for me to find a lawyer in any of the 50 states. There's a couple, Alaska, it's kind of tough, right? Hawaii. So, for the large part, though, it's easy to find local counsel. And the nature of trucking business is it goes across state lines. And so typically you have a truck driver from one state, you have a trucking company from another state, you have a broker from another state, and the accident happens, God knows where, when they're going from point A to point B. So there's always jurisdictional issues and venue issues in every trucking case, especially when we represent truck drivers. and the unfortunate thing is, like, those cases, if they're serious and catastrophic, the truck driver loses their ability to earn a living.
Right.
And, and the company that employs them, if they work for a company, takes risk in continuing to employ them if they have some sort of physical impairment. If they've lost some vision, if they had a serious concussion or lost some mobility in their limbs, they become a risk and danger to others and themselves. And, the company, if they were, God forbid, they were in another wreck and it's questionable about liability, then, the plaintiff attorney in that case would have an easy case and go, man, you had all kind of physical issues and the company decided to keep you driving anyway, right?
Right.
And it becomes a whole thing. So when we have those cases, like, we're very aware of those situations and circumstances, because I'm on both sides of it with truck drivers. And sometimes we're going after a truck driver and the truck company, and sometimes we represent the truck driver going after another trucking company, or
Right.
a four-wheeler is what they call it when it's a passenger vehicle sometimes. So it's something that a lot of people would never think of, right? But those economic damages for life can be substantial. Somebody loses their ability to earn a living and they have to find something else to do.
Well, you mentioned you got your start in defense law.
Yeah.
And I was hoping you could speak a little bit about that time and about how your experience in defense law has sort of influenced your approach to PI.
Right. That's I kind of fell backwards into it. I mean, just to be honest with you, the defense law firm, basically, I got out of law school right after 9/11. And so I don't know how old you are, but, back then the recession in the legal market, everything was just at a standstill. It's kind of like COVID,
Right.
Nobody was really hiring. And the job that I had hoped to get, and I was waiting to hear back, I had just done a callback interview, was in building number 7 in the World Trade Center.
Wow.
And so I'm doing a study abroad program at that time, and I'm jobless now. Like, the job I wanted was in that tower. And I had just done an interview, and I think on August 28th or August 30th of
Wow.
2001, just a few days before it happened. And so when I got back to the States the next semester, my third year of law school, second semester, I'm saddled with 6 figures of student debt, which is pretty normal now, but back then it really wasn't. And I had to get a job,
Wow.
and I've always been an entrepreneur. I've had many businesses from a teenager to, through college. I got my real estate license when I was 20. I'd founded a internet company that was kind of like MySpace meets Craigslist, online college classifieds in college, that was really successful, really quick. And then I decided to go to law school. So I had a lot riding on law school and in my career afterwards, and found myself in a pickle of just writing out letters. I bought a database and just sent letters out to hundreds of law firms and across the country in major metro areas. And every single day after I graduated law school, I was getting letters in the mail that were all rejection letters. So, yeah. And when I moved back to Houston and basically said, all right, I'm just going to have to figure this out, I was just getting those letters, for 8 months until I passed the bar exam. I took it that summer when I got out of law school, July in Texas. I had to learn oil and gas and all this stuff. I just self-studied with some books that some friends gave me and passed the bar exam, got the results that year in November. And then I got interviews. And I by this time, if you can imagine, I got a binder in my actual office. I'm at my home office right now, but I have a binder and I collected all the rejection letters. It was so depressing, but I had nothing to do. And I'm a busybody. And I couldn't find a job. I mean, I was even thinking about waiting tables and bartending. I was helping my sister with her business at the time. And I mean, I could not find a job. And I collected and I alphabetized all those rejection letters. I still have them in my office.
That's great motivation, right?
Yeah. I was like, don't talk to me about failure, and I got proof right here. I keep it so I don't forget about how many no's you got to get until you get that one yes. And I had committed myself. The first yes I get, I'm taking that job. I don't care what it is. And the first job I got was a pretty good job. It was a law firm that did insurance defense. Had no idea what insurance defense was. And when I went to law school, I had no desire to be a courtroom lawyer. Like that just sounded like hell on earth to me. I was like, no, I'm a corporate guy. I'm a business guy. I'm an entrepreneur. Like that's the world I need to be in. And I take this job and start getting into litigation, and figured out that I was good at it. Like I don't know. It was something about it. The chess moves of the game and got my interest and kept my interest, made me really focused. And I I'm very competitive. So as a little cocky insurance defense lawyer, I was extremely aggressive in hindsight. Like now I just can't even imagine having a lawyer like that on the other side that I got to deal with. I'd lose it. And I did that for 2.5 years. And first it was interesting, but then once I got the hang of it, I talked to my boss maybe once a month or every 2 months, and I had my cases that I handled at a young age, and he put a lot of trust in me, and I never paid anybody any money for the insurance companies. I mean, I somehow would get out on summary judgment or just paper to file the death and make them give up. And which sounds like a nightmare now, being a plaintiff's attorney, because I would hate to deal with somebody like me. I would absolutely freaking hate it. I got bored. Right. So I got bored with the job. There was no fulfillment in it because at the end of the day, what am I doing? Saving the insurance company some money, There was no client or anything, it just wasn't fulfilling.
Right. And it's interesting, that you'd mentioned, how you're kind of how, you were impacted by 9/11, but I kind of wanted to talk about your relationship to some other major incidents like the BP oil refinery explosion and the Deepwater. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how you represented those clients that were impacted by those major incidents and how you dealt with that.
Yeah, that's actually how I got started. So when I left my firm back in 2005, I come from a blue collar family. I have 50-something cousins, and first cousins too. I'm not even including second and third. So in the Houston area, and and I went to high school in the Houston area. My cousins all went to high school in the Houston area. My aunts, my uncles. My mom was one of 9, so I have a huge network of people just naturally, and everybody was blue collar. I'm the first lawyer in my family. And that network, people get involved in incidents, and they knew I was a lawyer, and they would start calling me and asking about this and that. So the oil spill happens. The oil explosion, the refinery explosion happens in 2005, and I had an opportunity to work on those cases. And so that's how I initially started, was working on the explosion cases. There was some of the first cases I worked on, and worked with other plaintiffs' attorneys that were in there, and leading the litigation on it. I was still in my 20s at this point when I'm working on these cases. And just had a knack for it. Had a knack for talking to people and gaining their trust and making sure that they felt like I was the guy to get them closure, justice, peace. And, they just started referring me their friends and their friends' friends and so forth. And it just kind of like organically grew from there, and next thing you know, I'm getting referrals for 18-wheeler cases, trucking cases. And initially I was kind of just brokering them all out and managing the client relationships. And then I got bored again and handled a car wreck case about a year into starting my firm, and did all the work myself. And I got an incredible recovery for a young woman that was injured in a serious car wreck up in Dallas. And, I just had to, what I call a CTJ, a come to Jesus with myself. Feel like I'm not really getting the fulfillment, of just signing up cases and referring them out and managing the client expectations and relationships. And I missed the fight of litigation. And so I got a taste of it on that first car wreck case I handled, got a great recovery, and said, okay, I'll start doing car wrecks and cases. And then the floodgates opened. And I just started getting tons of them. And I was getting them done back in a day in 6 to 9 months from sign up to clients getting a check in the hand. And I was getting great results, like 3, to 5 times whatever their medical bills were. That was kind of like the barometer of how you managed a case back then. And then I got some really challenging cases. Like in hindsight, we wouldn't even take these cases. I mean, I'm just to be honest, the liability was so bad, clients on drugs, that kind of stuff. But I was like, I'll do it. I could win this case, as a young aggressive trial lawyer. And so I took some really, really tough liability cases and questionable damages, the pre-existing stuff. And my mindset was, if I can win these cases, I can win anything.
Right.
And so I started trying those cases, and winning them against very experienced trial lawyers who had tried hundreds and hundreds of cases, because all they do is represent State Farm or Allstate on all of their car wreck cases.
Right.
And it made no sense to me, back then. I was like, how am I winning all these trials, And we were getting crazy results. I'm talking like $70,000 on 6 bureau visits, we were smoking them. We weren't just winning,
Right.
And these were cases they considered slam dunks on the other side. And so, you haven't asked me this, but I'll tell you, as I'm thinking about this, me and my partner at the time, Zach, we used to have these long drives because we were taking cases anywhere, everywhere, all over Texas. So we would drive to Corpus Christi or Dallas or Austin or San Antonio, Beaumont. We had a lot of cases in Beaumont. And so we would talk. And I was like, man, how are we winning these cases? Why are these guys have tried so many cases and they're so good at this? This is all they do every day, all they've done for the last 30 years. How are we still beating these guys that are old enough to be our grandparents? And I now in hindsight, we had figured out that emotion drives results with the juries. We had figured that out somehow. And we had also were very, very authentic. We didn't come off. I came off just like I'm coming off to you right now, just very humble, everyday man kind of deal. And we didn't do that, the whole may it please the court, I'm James Amaro here to present the case of a plaintiff versus a defendant. We weren't all formal and everything because we didn't know. We didn't know what was appropriate or inappropriate. And so we just defaulted to the, what?
Genuine,
Let's just do what it takes to win the case, and we'll do that. And played it by ear. I mean, we'd be smoking cigarettes out the car window on his long drive, going, hey, what do you think about this? What about if we say this in opening? We didn't even write it. We would just have a basic outline of what we were doing. So in hindsight, I would never let my lawyers do that today. Like,
but it worked out.
It's not a practice tip.
So I'm wondering, I mean, you've got all these, you've got all these great stories, and I'm sure you've got, hundreds and thousands of people and cases that you've seen, that you've helped. I mean, especially now. And I'm wondering, looking back on all of these cases you've tried and people that you've helped and clients you've worked with, is there one story that really stands out in your mind that you could share with us? That is an example of someone that you really saw a positive transformation in as a result of your help and guidance?
There's one family that I think of every single day, because they lost a son who is the age of my daughter.
Oh, wow.
And I drive through the intersection where it happened. It was a commercial vehicle accident pretty often. And so I think of that family and what they went through and say a little prayer every time we drive through that area. And I remind my daughters of it. I call it the Jones, I'll just say the Jones Bridge to respect their privacy. And just remind my kids about what happened and why it's important, right? And the tips that I have from that experience. But we handle a very large amount of wrongful death cases. I mean, we have wrongful death cases that come in pretty much every day. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. And not all, we can't help everybody, because sometimes it's a hit and run, or there's no insurance involved, and there's really nothing that we can add value to the case or the situation besides just provide them some helpful guidance of where they might be able to find help. So, cases that involve children, I think they just affect you forever. I don't think they ever leave your mind. And, that case, the way the family was able to move on from it, I was just extremely, it was very admirable of how a tragedy like that happens rips families apart. Like I've seen it. I've seen it with my family, with suicides, and how it just tears people apart, and people blame each other and find fault, and they get depressed, and they go through all the stages of grief. And it sometimes it's less painful to, break up and to avoid the pain of having to, see somebody else that was involved in the situation. So that family, they would be like model parents that have dealt with the unthinkable of what happened to their son, and how they moved through it, and some of the things that they said when we closed the case and we resolved it for them, and they got it was a tremendous recovery for them, and they there's different ways you can look at it, and some people when they resolve a case like this for a loved one, whether it's a child, a parent, sibling, or whatever, or spouse, like the way they see it is sort of like how people see life insurance settlements. It's kind of like blood money, it could be interpreted that way. And that family didn't see it that way. They saw it as, we may not have our child anymore, but this is the blessing that he left for us as a family to move forward, and we're going to respect it in that way. We don't have him, but we have this. Never will replace him. Not even close. But it's sort of like when people plant trees in the memory, of somebody. It's just something to do. They saw it as a vehicle to move forward. Right. So these cases, and I'm being careful what I say about it. Right. Confidential, but they impact you as an attorney. It's not. And it's something, 20 years ago, I never would have imagined I would be handling cases like this. In law school, never would have imagined I'd handle cases like this, much less be a courtroom attorney. Right. But, when you figure out what you're good at and you start thinking about why am I good at this, it helps direct your career, as an attorney. It's helped me.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of fulfillment out of it, of, being responsible with the skills and gifts that I've had, naturally or attained through practice.
Absolutely. Well, James, this has been an absolutely incredible conversation. And if anybody out there listening is in a position where they could use your help, could use the help of your firm, how can the people find you?
Sure. We're easy to find. We're on the internet all over the place on Google. So if you Google James Amaro, I think I'm the only personal injury lawyer, last time I checked, in the United States with the last name Amaro. We have one of the biggest firms in Texas, so we're really easy to find. We're on Facebook, Instagram, not Snapchat or TikTok.
Well, James, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been absolutely incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate you, man.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Partnerships for Profit presented by LeDuc Entertainment. James, thank you so much again.
Thanks. Appreciate you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.